Hey guys, so until now we have looked at the different types of salts that are there. We check their pH to see what type of salt they are. Today we are going to look at what can I do with these salts, what uses are there for these salts. We'll start with the most common one for now, that is the common salt, the one that we use. In today's class we'll talk about what all I can do with common salt directly or indirectly. Okay, now the simplest most common use for us is in the household, right? We add it to food while we cook to get the taste out of the food. Now this salt is usually found in the ocean, right? Seawater is full of different types of salts. Out of these, the major salt that's dissolved in the sea is this, right? What common salt is. And even we harvest the salt from the sea. Sometimes there are salt deposits on the ocean and then it's just harvested from there. It's kind of like how we get coal, right? We just have an industrial process to remove all the salt, purify it. So this salt in its raw form is called as rock salt. Okay, it kind of deposits as big rocks of salt, whitish colored crystallized rocks. Those are then later, you beat them down, you make them into powder, you clean them up, and then you find this soft sand like salt that we use in our homes, right? Now these are the general uses, and this is generally how we find this salt. Apart from this, in industry there are a lot more uses for this salt which we are going to look at today. Okay, we are going to talk about three different compounds that salt can give us. Okay, for the first one, if you remember when we were doing our experiments, I used a base called sodium hydroxide, right? It is quite a strong base, and that is the base that we used in all our activities. This base is made using salt. Okay, now it might seem odd, confusing, but that is how it is. Whenever this salt, right, is added in water, right, we mix the salt in water, we make something called a brine solution. Brine is nothing but very salty water. You just add a lot of salt to a quantity of water, and then what you do, you run current through it. Electricity, you just run current through it completely. So what happens when these two things are mixed and you run a current is this base sodium hydroxide is formed. Along with that, you have two other products, hydrogen gas and chlorine gas. Okay, if you've seen electrolysis process somewhere, you will see that there are like 2 points from where electricity goes in and comes out, right? Anode, cathode. At each of them you will find one, either hydrogen or chlorine, whichever gas. Along with them, sodium hydroxide also remains in the solution. Okay, so we have two reactants, sodium chloride and water, and three products, sodium hydroxide, hydrogen gas and chlorine gas. So this process is called as chlor-alkali process. Simply chlor-alkali because chlor means chlorine gas, because we are getting chlorine gas as a product, and alkali because we are getting NaOH, sodium hydroxide. So any base that can mix with water is called an alkali. Okay, not all bases can mix with water, some of them can. So those are called as alkalis. Now, so this is the first use that we can tell. We use sodium chloride to get sodium hydroxide base. Now, another thing that I can use this for is to make something called bleaching powder. Right? If you're familiar with bleach or its uses, we use it sometimes in washing our clothes, right? If there's a stain on our clothes, we use bleach to remove that color or whatever is needed, right? So to make this bleaching powder, we need the help of the sodium chloride. not directly, but yes, we need it. Okay, I'll tell you why. So you remember I said that when we are making sodium hydroxide, one of the other products we get is chlorine gas. That chlorine gas is not thrown away. Okay, all three things, that all the products that we get from that reaction are all useful. So we keep the hydrogen, we keep the chlorine, and we keep the sodium hydroxide also. Okay, each of them have their own uses. The chlorine gas is used to make bleaching powder. Okay, now for this to happen, what we do is you use something called calcium hydroxide. If it reacts with chlorine gas in the right conditions, it can prepare something called as bleaching powder. Okay, its formula is CaOCl2. All right, so the products for this reaction are this bleaching powder along with water. So it will be mixed in the water. Now if you dry the water out, it will form the powder, or else it stays in liquid. Either way is used. Okay, that is not important. Now there are quite a few uses for this bleaching powder. The simplest use we already discussed, that is for washing clothes. So industrially what it is used for is when we make clothes, textiles, even they need bleaching. Cotton, if you see, it's not always purely white when they're making it, right? Or any other fiber. So they use this bleaching powder to bleach that cotton and to make it white. That is how they get that whitish color, right? Also used in bleaching wood, right? Because wood makes paper, right? You must have wondered, why is wood brown but paper is white? It's because in the process they use bleaching powder and they bleach that brown color right off and make the paper white, right? And like we said, also laundry, it is used in bleaching. Perfect. Now another use for it would be in cleaning up our water, right? So sometimes there are water purification plants, right? They use this bleaching powder, they add it to water and it kills all the germs. However, it's not simply just adding this, there is a process to follow, right? You add this and then there are other steps to do. So don't try this, don't get bleaching powder, put it in water, it's dangerous. Okay, there are many other processes to clean it altogether. Another thing that we can talk about chemically is making something called chloroform, right? Maybe you've seen in some movies, they just like put this cloth on your face and you kind of pass out, behosh, right? That is chloroform. Okay, chloroform is a type of what we call anesthetic. And anesthetic is something that will make you fall asleep, especially when you are under an operation, right? It's one anesthetic which is used, and to make it we need this bleaching powder. That's pretty much all of the uses. There are a couple of more. I think for now these are enough. Okay. Now finally coming to baking soda. This is another compound that we are very familiar with. That baking soda is sometimes used in our household too. Now to make this baking soda, again I am going to need our own original salt, which is sodium chloride. Okay. Now to make this I am going to need sodium chloride. I am going to need water. Basically I will need the same solution. Okay, but this time I will add two different reactants, right? I'll add ammonia, what we call ammonia, and I'm going to add carbon dioxide gas. Okay, so keep in mind this reaction has 4 reactants. Okay, when all these 4 reactants combine, you'll get 2 products. Okay, you'll get something called ammonium chloride and you'll get sodium bicarbonate, which is nothing but baking soda, right? Ammonium chloride is a salt that we have seen in the activity last time with the pH, right? So 4 reactants are forming 2 different products, NH4Cl ammonium chloride, NHCO3 sodium bicarbonate, which is also called as baking soda. All right. So like we saw, it is a slightly basic salt, right? If you remember, this is how we have tested it for pH also. Now what happens with this baking soda? Why do we use it? What exactly does it do that makes it used? Like if you remember, we use it in cake, right? If you put it in cake, then it kind of just becomes fluffy, right? It gives a sponginess to the cake. So that comes because of what happens whenever sodium bicarbonate gets heated. Okay, every time you heat sodium bicarbonate, it breaks down into smaller parts. Okay, one of those parts is carbon dioxide gas. Because of the carbon dioxide gas, it kind of just tries to move out, and that's what gives the cake its fluffiness. Other than just for cooking, there are a couple of other uses for this sodium bicarbonate. One of them being, we speak of antacid, gelusil and all of these, right? One of the things used in these antacids is this. Okay, because it's a mild base, right? So it kind of helps in acidity issues. It is also used as an antiseptic. You know what antiseptics like Dettol, right? Every time there is an injury, we use that something on the wound so that it kills the germs. That is an antiseptic. All right. It is also used in fire extinguishers, right? You know how they are, there's big red colored cylinders, and you just like pop them open and there's like foam that comes out, right? So one of the ingredients to make that chemical is this sodium bicarbonate. So the main active ingredient in that fire extinguisher is CO2 anyway, right? Now that's pretty much it. These are the major uses for baking soda, and that is the entire process. Okay, so we have looked at 3 compounds. We looked at sodium hydroxide, we looked at bleaching powder, we also looked at baking soda, all of which in some way connected to sodium chloride as a salt. So this is a pure theory class. I hope you are able to follow and take the notes. I will again see you tomorrow for a different class. All right, thank you.